Good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone this morning. A few things on the agenda for us to discuss. I want to go ahead and get started with our city pre-commission meeting on Friday the 7th at 8 a.m. Hopefully everyone's had a good past couple of weeks. All right, let's get started. Let's open up with our city attorney's report.
All right, so for the next couple of weeks, or next couple of pre-meetings, I'm going to be doing just some regular local government trainings. And today I'm starting off with parliamentary procedure because your code of ordinances require that your meetings use Robert's Rules of Order. So this won't take long, but I did want to provide you a little cheat sheet that talks about a simplified manner in which Robert's Rules works. Does everybody have one? Should get one. Okay. So your code, not your charter, but your code says that all meetings of the City Commission, both regular and special, shall be conducted in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised. Adherence is directory only, so you don't invalidate an action if you don't follow Robert's Rules specifically. But it is helpful to sort of keep order and give everybody a right to participate in a discussion. The heaviest burden falls on the chair to facilitate discussion. But one of the things I want to point out is that the version of Robert's Rules y'all have adopted in your code has a separate set of rules that are available for small boards of 12 members or less. Not everybody uses those rules. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of those rules, but they are considerably different from the rules I think everyone is familiar with in a couple of ways. The primary one that I think is important is that the chair can participate in the discussion and make motions. Historically, you see the chair act as a neutral facilitator, and that's still a really good practice to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to speak. But under those rules for small boards, the chair can make a motion or can make a second to further discussion.
Are we considered a small board?
Your 12 or less is considered a small board, so you are a small board. Members can remain seated, which I think is hilarious. In the formal rules of Robert's Rules, those wishing to make a motion need to stand to make that motion and be recognized. Y'all can stay seated. Y'all do that anyway. Under the informal rules, motions need not be seconded. I recommend you get a second anyway to confirm that at least two people on your board want to have that discussion and consider that proposal. But on the flip side of that, informal discussion of a subject is permitted while there is no motion pending under those informal rules. So that allows you to still have discussion even if you don't have a second. Under these informal rules, there's no limit to the number of times a member can speak. Under the formal rules, for a large assembly, generally a member only gets 2 chances to speak on an issue. And under these informal rules, you can speak as many times as you want to on an issue to either ask questions or influence a vote one way or the other. Perfectly clear proposals can be voted on without a motion under the informal rules. Again, my caveat here is make sure it is perfectly clear. For instance, approval of the minutes. Because if it is not perfectly clear, it creates mischief, I feel like, later on, if what was perfectly clear to you was not perfectly clear to the mayor when y'all by consensus approved an item. So there are a couple of caveats that don't work exactly. I don't feel like work very cleanly, but I did want you to be aware of these small rules that do allow for primarily the mayor, the chair, to participate and make motions if you'd like. Y'all are already working more informally than on the formal rules of.
You mean the mayor could make the motion at a meeting?
Mm-hmm.
I thought he had to pass the gavel.
In a large assembly, that is true under Robert's Rules of Order. Under the informal rules for small boards, 12 or less, the mayor, the chair, may make a motion or second a motion. Now, if that's problematic for y'all, you can still create your own rules, and you can require that the chair always pass the
Why do
gavel.
we want to change it now? That's the way it's always been, isn't it? Right?
So under the rules for large assembly, which I think you have been operating under, but I wanted to bring to your attention that because you are a small board, you can still comply with Robert's Rules of Order with some of these. They're not variations. They're just rules that are applicable specifically to small boards to make the meeting more efficient. And one of those things that is markedly different for small boards is that the chair can participate and by making motions or second them.
Are you bringing this to every municipality that y'all
Everyone will do a parliamentary procedure training on, we
are?
will.
I mean, is this something that your law firm is telling everybody right now, or why are we talking about this?
So for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing just a series of little trainings on local government, municipal local government stuff.
Okay.
Governance versus administration, sunshine law, just refreshing on things I think y'all ought to know. And because your code requires you to comply with Robert's rules, I wanted to give you a little refresh on Robert's rules.
Okie
So
Those were so rowdy.
you're not.
I was leaving my house when the bells were ringing, so excuse me for being late.
So I guess one question would be, do we want to, although we have the liberty to follow the small group setting, I think we haven't, as you stated, been following the large group setting. Do we have to choose one over the other so that it doesn't become, so you can't like, I guess that's one of the questions where, hey, we have liberty to do this, then do we just pick this part out and say, oh yeah, hey, let's do this today, and sort of mix the two, like,
So this is your default. You also have the ability to set your own, you as a board, the 5 of you have the ability to set your own rules of procedure, specifically how you want things to happen, meetings to happen in your city. So if it's important to the 5 of you that the mayor not ever be allowed to make a motion or make a second without passing the gavel, you need to pass a resolution to make that expectation clear. Because as long as Robert's rules are your default, you have that ability. Right now, you have that ability. This piece of paper I've passed out to you is called Robert's Rules of Order Simplified. And I don't know if, do y'all have drawers up there where I could keep this on the desk?
No.
Okay. Well, then take this home and look at it at your leisure. But how to do things, it sort of creates or sets out various situations of you want to bring a new idea before the group, you want more time. This tells you which motion you might use to do that. I will say too, this how to do things. 2 of the scenarios I want to bring to your attention about halfway down, the second and third to last. You are tired of the current discussion. You can move to limit debate. This is a rule for large assemblies. The one immediately below it, you have heard enough discussion. You move to close the debate. For small boards, these motions are not appropriate. So if you are operating under those rules for small boards, because they are informal and meant to facilitate as much discussion as possible, it's up to the chair as to when to call the question. The members don't have the ability to limit debate or close the debate because they've heard enough. So
We could table something, right?
you can absolutely table something. So anyway, I just wanted to give you this quick little primer to refresh you on Robert's rules if you had any questions. And that is my report.
any questions for city attorney?
So even if something is not, does not have a second on it, you can still discuss it.
You can. Or if there is no motion pending at all, you can still discuss it.
What was your question, ma'am? I didn't hear.
If you have an item and there is no second, you can still discuss it.
Under the rules for small boards,
Okay.
that is specifically one of the informalities that they allow.
But the item will die on the floor, but you could still talk about it.
You can still talk about it. Or you can talk about it before there's even a motion pending.
And can you do public commentary on it?
Not if it's not a second.
So there is an intersection of Robert's rules and the Sunshine Law. They don't always match. A couple of the ways in which Robert's rules and Sunshine Law don't match. Well, let me say this too. Robert's rules of order are for y'all. They're not for the public. They don't control how the public participates. But with regard to the Sunshine Law, where Robert's Rules allows closed meetings, the Sunshine Law allows them to be under very limited circumstances, whereas the Sunshine Law requires meeting notices. Robert's Rules does not. Conversely, Robert's Rules requires meeting agendas, whereas the Sunshine Law does not require an agenda for a meeting to happen in the sunshine. Likewise, what I could consider to be a Sunshine Law right to public participation is not necessarily something that Robert's Rules requires. So,
Didn't really answer that.
okay, I'm sorry.
So typically
The scenario that
So-
Ms. Vandiger said, if you have a motion doesn't get a second, we can discuss.
You can discuss.
But and I'm thinking of previous meetings, can the public comment on that as well in the discussion?
Okay, I'm going to say it's up to the chair
Okay.
to decide, because under the Sunshine Law, the requirement, the trigger is a proposal currently pending. So if there's not a second to the motion, I feel like it's not currently pending, it's not right, you can't vote on it.
Okay. That helps. I think that helps guide everybody as to what we would do.
Okay,
You know what I mean? I just wanted
does
to.
that help?
and let me say, I think to Vandergrift's question, that's what we already do. So we already discuss, like, for example, typically we have the discussion before I call for the motion. Unless it's something that I think is already, I'm not gonna say that we're already voting on, but for example, if it's something that might be simplified, like to add this truck to the surplus, we may want to have further discussion on it, but if we discuss it on Thursday, I may just say, is there a motion for this? Whereas if there's a topic for discussion, then typically we discuss it, and then after we discuss it, then we call for the motion, call for the vote.
And that's perfectly acceptable under the rules for small boards.
So that's typically how we do it, is we have the open discussion and then ask for the vote, or have the discussion, ask for the motion, and then turn it over to the public, and then come back to us for the vote. Unless we try to have more discussion, which we would try to push us to just having the vote at that point after the public has their input. Because we don't go back to the public for more input after we have additional discussion. So
So why did they, in the past, there was always kind of a standard rule that the mayor couldn't make a motion unless they passed the gavel? So why did they always do that in the past?
So those that, I mean, I feel like Robert's Rules were developed, 100 or more years ago. And that is the rule that I feel like most local governments have operated under. The rules for small boards, I think, only came into effect in the 2012 version of Robert's Rules. And have you ever read Robert's Rules? I mean, most people don't. But anyway, so they haven't been there for all that long, so I don't think people are paying
It's the
paying
guy's
attention
first
to
name or
them.
last name.
It's his last name.
Yeah.
So I feel like for the most part, folks aren't aware of them, or it could be their own rules of procedure require it. But I can't answer that.
all right, well, thank you for that. Any questions about the warrant list?
There was a fellow's name on there, and forgive me for not. I don't know who the hell it was.
James Moore, is that what you're looking at?
Yeah.
That's the auditors. James
Okay,
Moore,
okay.
auditing.
Yep. Yeah. And then, one more question.
Sure.
Just because I'm thinking about it, and because something, Waste Pro paid 64,000. Is that the average monthly bill?
It averages anywhere from about 55 to 65,000.
That's why I was looking at that.
The Waste Pro landfill deal, those prices did increase as per their annual deal, not the commercial garbage pickup, but the landfill of where we dump for our yard debris and construction debris and stuff like that.
Did Ballwood container charges that same fee?
They don't have a landfill.
They don't have a land.
Right. The landfill price.
So would their bill bit have been more?
On their new bid, they didn't have accurate prices to
I
show
know.
what it was. The previous contract, I think the average was around 52 to 55, so very close to that.
Very.
And also our commercial accounts have increased, which is also.
Yeah, I just thought that was a little high from what we were. So
When does
And-
that contract come back up again?
So,
I believe it's next year. I would have to look to give you a
It's-
for sure
it's
answer, but I'm
next
pretty
year.
sure it's next year.
Have we had,
Yes. It was a 3-year deal.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, and they've gone up every year, trust me.
Well, I guess we got to put out the quotes for it, so that way, by the time it ends, somebody will be able to take it over. It hadn't been 3 years, but, yeah.
Have we had any complaints on Westboro?
So we have, it's been normal, I mean, not daily or weekly, but you do have your complaints of, missed pickups or issues. I think our biggest challenge was lack of communication from our staff to them, whether it was setting up a new account or like, say, a restaurant wanted to go from a 4-yard to an 8-yard dumpster, getting that swapped out. We have had some communication mishaps. We try to keep up with them, so when it's time for you all to decide to renew the contract for another term, we can give you all that information so you can decide to renew the contract or to go back out to an RFQ.
More or less than the previous,
It has been more.
Like, their dumpsters aren't the same size.
Any other questions for the warrant list? All right, to our consent agenda. Any questions from the consent agenda?
Oh. All these cars that were going to auction, they all had the same thing wrong with them. Did you see that? Every one of them, no air conditioning, front end problem. I don't know if you read, because I was looking at the chargers and whatnot. So I'm just wondering. And they needed. I mean, they're 2012, 2014s. They and they run them hard. But I just noticed that they all had the same issues.
I do know Dodge, whether it's Jeep, Dodge, Ram, they do have issues with their AC going out.
Yeah, all of them. No AC and and then not repairable front end, stuff. So
well, they run all the time.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I didn't even realize that, if they like run in to use the restroom,
No, the cars run.
the car's running.
Yeah,
It has to
they're
run
mileage
constantly.
monsters, and they run. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
Imagine it.
chargers were definitely not good to,
Yeah. So we have cars now taking their place.
Oh,
I mean, we
think
have
do.
enough cars on the road.
We got cars and trucks, SUVs.
We ordered 3 this budget year, and we will have to add more, but the Chargers were bought. It was right after the fall of the market.
Right.
They took the Crown Vic out of the police fleet,
Right,
and they put
that's
the
it.
Dodge Charger in, and they
They were the next.
certainly not near as tough as a
Yeah.
Crown Vic.
They were the next best fleet car after they stopped making the Crown Vic, right? Or stopped using it.
I wouldn't say that. We haven't bought any more,
Right.
if that tells the story.
Right.
Any other questions on consent agenda? Everybody's good with that? All right.
Hudson Hawkins, but you-
Discussion pertaining to the specific parking requirements for recreational vehicles. This is something that we've talked about before. City Attorney.
So at your last discussion, I understood I was directed to find out what Panama City was currently considering. So what I have provided you is the ordinance that has not been adopted by the city, but is being recommended to the commission by the planning board. So it's been through a couple of iterations and public hearings already, but this is what I understand this to be the version that is being proposed to the commission for adoption. It addresses recreational equipment generally. So there's a definition of recreational equipment that's larger than just RVs, which is where you had started your discussion. So it includes vehicle, vessel, trailers, large equipment used primarily for recreational purposes, therefore including travel trailers, camping trailers, truck campers, motorhomes, boats, boat trailers, jet skis, race cars, utility trailers, dune buggies, and similar recreational equipment. So the scope of this may be larger than what you wanted, but I did want to bring that to your attention. It's bigger than just RVs, but I think RVs and boats are driving the issue there, just like they were driving the issue here.
All right. Any initial thoughts on this? Of course, we're not voting on this on Tuesday, just discussing.
So is this basically saying you can park it in the front? It's okay to park it in the front?
It's okay to park it in the front for, I feel like, a limited time, as long as you're not creating a visibility problem. And
The
then,
visibility triangle.
right. Maybe parked in rear yards, front yards, or required side yards, but not both. So
Is limited amount of time defined?
24 hours.
So they can only park in the front for 24 hours?
That's
The way
correct.
this was written.
Well, it can be maybe parked in the front yard as long as for an unlimited amount of time if you're outside of the visibility triangle. But you only get one. You can't have one in the front, one in the side, and one in the back.
Right.
You have to pick a place and for one thing, and that's all you get.
When you say outside the visibility triangle, basically they can't see it.
No, that means that it can't, with your neighbors, when they're backing out of their driveway, the RV or the equipment can't create a visibility problem for them.
Okay.
It's not that it can't be seen, it's that it can't create a problem for them when they're pulling out of their.
So they can park it in the front yard as long as it meets the visibility triangle for however long or,
Mhm.
okay.
They have a really good description of the visibility triangle
Yeah.
too. I like that.
So, of course, I think, if there's something wrong with it, like the tires are off of it and that, I think that falls under the codes for just regular vehicles. 'Cause I know there's code that talks about that. It's got to be registered and things like that.
Right, those are considered nuisance vehicles, and you already have a code enforcement mechanism for that.
Okay.
So are we telling someone they can't park their RV in their driveway?
That is the current problem. You have a lot of RVs parked in driveways right now, and your code requires that they be in the backyards.
I think we have
We
like
had-
300 that's in violation right now.
Right. We had somebody, Ricky, remember that, was it a meeting before this one? It was like 2 meetings ago. Somebody was listening to the meeting and we hit this topic. He drove up here.
Yes.
He's got an RV. And I wanted to, because you had mentioned something about, people's liberties and rights and whatnot. And
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, truly being in a driveway, I mean, I told you, there's over 300 in driveways right now. in the
Right,
city,
right, yeah.
And this guy's one of them. So, it's on their private property. That is a concern of mine. But I also agree that if it's a blind spot or you can't see around it and it's so large, but I really think we need to entertain what the city has written. But you're gonna have a lot of people come out if you were to say you couldn't have them in a driveway. It's their driveway. And that's a key factor.
Yeah.
They're there.
So why did we put it, and I hear what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing, but why did we make that does anyone have the historical knowledge on why we need to let it in the driveways initially?
Amanda or Bobby, do you have any?
I don't know why initially, but it's been like that. When I came in 2012, it was like that. It was like that in Callaway. I don't know what other cities it was like that. But if you had an RV, it had to be parked in, I believe in Callaway, it was the same with boats. Had to be parked, some people said side yard, some say rear. But it was just a common thing. I don't know why it was, but cities didn't want those things parked in front of the house.
All right, well, again, still in the discussion. So I guess one question would be in regards to the major recreational equipment. Trying to see, and I'm probably just overlooking it with all the,
It's on page 48.
right. Well, I see that part, but I'm asking what is still being defined as a major recreational vehicles?
So that is the definition of the definition on 48 is the definition that
Okay,
controls.
any
So,
vehicle vessel. So basically, you can't have a RV in the front and a boat and a boat trailer on the side.
that's correct.
So then, if the RV's in the front, then the boat trailer has to be in the back. Or you can't have, like, for example, like, I don't know if you see I don't know how, like, there's one guy in the neighborhood that has like 2 boats. He's right there on the right
He's
hand
on
side.
Dundee.
Yeah, he has like a small Carolina skiff,
Yeah.
and then he has like a larger boat, and they're both parked right there.
Yeah.
So that would mean that he would, and I'm not saying like this is right or wrong, I'm just trying to understand. So he would have to move one of those boats
In the back.
to the back. Or if I have an RV in the boat, then I can only have the RV in one spot and the boat in another spot. Or the boat has to be in the backyard. Or the RV has to be in the backyard. Okay. So just making sure I got clarity on that.
I was just asking Ricky I know it would take a couple days or a week or more to hang this on the doors of the 300 people and then entertain having a workshop for them. I mean, we talk about 300 people with a vested interest. You know, they have expensive things and they have rights.
So I guess,
Before we put it into effect, I'd want to give them an opportunity to hear from them, you know.
right. So I guess with the 300 violation, is that just for RVs or is that including RVs?
Just RV.
Okay. So then if we approved RVs being in driveways, then that would cover those 300 that are in violation.
If you approve for them to be in the driveway,
Right.
that would resolve the issue.
Unless they are in visibility triangle and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay.
Does the city have any objection to parking of cars or vehicles in front yards? I'm asking because I don't know.
Unless it's not registered or has all the wheels removed or something like big project or something. You know, like painting it or something like that. I don't think you can have it up front.
Okay, well, and that's my question, because once you allow the RVs in the driveways, it's foreseeable that all of the extra cars will start parking in the yard rather than on the asphalt. So what matters most, that all the cars, that the neighborhoods maintain a neat and clean appearance and cars only be parked in driveways on asphalt. Which you can absolutely do, to require the RVs go in the back or the RVs go in a storage facility. What do you care about the most? And if you don't care about cars in yards, there's no real problem with allowing RVs in driveways. But I did want to ask the question, because if you do care about cars in yards, that's the next problem to solve for code enforcement.
All right, well, we'll chew on that.
Okay.
So yeah, please, review again. Thank you for providing this
Yeah.
for us, Amy. Thank you for that. And we'll have additional discussion on Tuesday. And Commissioner Pernick, I guess you were saying like having a workshop or more public input.
Well, yeah, one guy just kind of rush up here, and you're gonna get a reaction, I guess. So I mean, and we're not talking to everybody. We're just talking to 300 violators to right now. We can set an emotion in if they want, but you try to want to give them their day in the sun and talk to everybody.
That also would include people who already have their RVs in storage. We'll take them out, and because that's a nice little hefty
Yeah.
fee that they're paying, we'll take them out and now put them in their
In
driveway.
their driveways.
So we have to consider that as
Now,
well.
Yep.
in regards to those that are in violation, do we need to do something as a commission to postpone any action on those violations while we're discussing this?
The complainants that have complained, we let them know this is in process, and they appear, I think, I haven't gotten any more, I don't know if you two. I know
Since I
they've
sent
done-
that last email, I haven't
Ever
received
since we let them know you guys were reviewing it, it's pretty much came to a halt.
Okay.
But I'm sure they're, like everybody else, anxious to see which direction we're gonna go.
All right, well, we'll keep this on the agenda and keep discussing it.
It's not gonna go away.
Yeah. So yeah, we brought it back up so we can continue to discuss it. So we'll discuss it Tuesday, and if we think we have a way forward, then we'll let our city attorney know and try to put an ordinance together or continue to have more discussion. Yes, ma'am.
Just as a point of that's my curiosity, has the number of RVs significantly increased since the hurricane?
Yes, ma'am.
Double?
I would almost say triple, to include me. Hot water and air conditioning is important.
Good question. Which is probably now why this is more of an issue than what it might have been when this ordinance was originally, or this code was initially written. All right, we're going to come back to 14. We'll save that for our discussion today. Last, of course, we'll keep it as 14 for the meeting on Tuesday, but let's come back to that for last. New business. Any questions on number 15?
In the last several months, you have adopted an ordinance that revised your cross-connection regulations in your code. Those regulations, or that ordinance, also specifically authorized the adoption of a cross-connection control program by resolution. The program is more specific as to the procedures, the forms, putting the public on notice of how enforcement will work. And what is expected of them from compliance. I mean, I think it also includes like diagrams even of what the equipment looks like.
Most of the package.
So we did this on purpose to allow it to be adopted by resolution, because when DEP updates their requirements, it will be more easily amended and the city will be able to respond more quickly to fall in line with what DEP is requiring. But it is authorized by your current code. So this is the implementation of what your code requires.
Okay.
All right, moving on to number 16.
Mayor, I meet with the mid-level supervisors monthly. I just like to hear what's going on in the field, what are the concerns, what are the challenging things that are keeping them from doing their jobs. And this actually came up with many of them, that the foremans and the superintendents, when they go out to get quotes, they spend more time trying to get a quote because anything over $2,000 requires it. And like part of a pipe, if they just wanting one piece of pipe, sometimes it's $2,500, and then they got to find somebody that will actually 3 quotes that will respond to this. This is just more efficient because like today, one of the supervisors wanted to come in and really talk to the commission, but there was a leak that happened. And so he's out there in the field. And then when he comes in, any materials that are needed, he's going to have to come in, find those materials, wait for 3 quotes, which in essence puts us in a position that we don't get a job completed for a residence because we're waiting for 3 quotes.
So basically, anything, right now, the way it's written, anything over $2,000 requires
Yes.
at least 3. If you can
At
get them.
least, and then sometimes, here's the other part of that too, great question. We don't get 3 quotes because there are only 2 people that supply it. And so, we're trying our best to find it, and then we just say, we only have 2 quotes, or this person didn't respond. So it's just really about efficiency so that they can do their jobs better.
So I guess one question would be, why did we choose the 3,500 as a threshold? Because is it that most things may be less than 3,500 for the
Yeah,
department?
that was their suggestion, 3,500 to 4,000. And as you can see, they're trying to just put it at a point where there's still internal control, but get the jobs done and the work orders done faster.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned 4,000. Is that something the commission would want to consider from 2,000 to 4,000 as a threshold?
It's 2,000 or 3,500.
It does, and they recommended 3,500 to 4,000.
They
So I
did.
didn't know, we can stay at 3,500. I was asking since they mentioned 4,000. If we want to consider that as a threshold, to leave it at 3,500.
I would imagine most of this stuff that you buy at that point. I wouldn't think there'd be that much of a price difference. I could be wrong, but
So, no, most of that is pretty consistent prices. However, the one problem we run into as well is if it's something we buy consistently, this company is always the lowest price, but because it's over 2,000, you have to get multiple quotes. And the other companies that quote all the time, they never get the job, but they always have to quote, and after a while, they just quit quoting, and so we can't get any more quotes on whatever we're trying to buy.
I would just, make sure,
Definitely push this up.
Inflation, that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More products where they went up over the last 3 or 4 years. Something that was under $2,000 is now in the range of $2,800. And we have to turn around and get 3 quotes on something we used to could just, direct buy under 2,000.
I'd just say that, and I'm sure we already do this, to make sure the employees are cognizant of trying to, cheapest not always the best, but, sometimes you gotta spend a little more to get quality, just that they're
And
being wise about it.
a prime example of that, lift station 25, we have to put some upgrades in. We have a requisition. We got 3 quotes. One was around 21,000, one was around 26,000, and one was 53,000, for example. The $26,000 quote is the one we're going with because the $21,000 quote is equipment that we have already and we're constantly having to repair it. So that additional $5,000 will pay off in the long run. We have the requisition in with a memo regarding that for the trail.
Perfect.
Yep, and we do that. We always look at quality. I know pricing is there, and if we go, say, with the next quote, they usually have an explanation there.
Okay. No, I don't have a problem with it.
Any other?
Who makes the determination that about the expenditure? I mean, would it be like Chris would make the determination that if it was over a certain amount or under a certain amount, or does it come to you? You know how we talked about now it takes 3 signatures for a payment? Is this just something that the department head
Yeah, that's on a
determines?
department level.
Okay.
It comes to me after, if passed, over that $4,000.
Got it.
So then if it's over 3,500, it comes to you for your,
My signature as well.
any other questions on 16? All right, 17, meaning the budget for the Lynn Haven Fire Department utilize impact fees to purchase 2 Chevy Tahoes for $129,662.
The fire chief could not be here this morning, but we did meet, myself, Kiki, and the fire chief. And one of the great things is that, of course, you see the older vehicles here. He said, we buy these 2, we won't have to buy vehicles for 10 years. That is a great thing. When you're trying to buy vehicles every year, he's doing a great assessment of that. And so the part that I want you to focus on is that in Florida statutes, they've added a section that we can buy emergency vehicles with impact fee money. That is a very useful thing to have because that means you don't take it from your general fund or your particular fund that you're using for projects in other areas. So that helps out the budget a lot. And really, impact fees are made when your city is impacted. And Chief will tell you, both chiefs, that the call volume has increased tremendously.
Or what? For just assistance or?
Medical calls.
Local call.
And I know the chief will go with me on this, their medical calls I know have increased. We get auto-generated on them, and so it's something that we have seen a very high uptick in.
We're on target for 3,000 calls this year. We're 2,700.
Bobby, would you come in?
We were 2,700 calls last year. We're 3,000 this year.
That's like 65,000 a vehicle for 2 vehicles.
Correct.
With everything in them.
That's
Yeah, that's
yeah,
everything.
that's everything.
Yes.
Okay. Because Ricky, don't you get, what do you bought Tahoes, right? You get,
The
Whatever.
Tahoe, yes, they are probably the most durable, for what's going on. I mean, you see through the snowstorms, the flooding, cars are just not the route to go. And as we continue to pick up north around 390 behind those apartments, I mean, we're getting dispatched to large gatherings out there where the old clay pits used to be.
Sure.
So you want to be able to get to the person
you want to
when
get
they need help.
And with the impact fees, it also includes, you can put the equipment in there.
Correct. It includes the installation
Yeah.
of all the emergency.
All the
equipment as well.
emergency
Okay,
equipment.
that's everything. That's lock, stock, and barrel.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions? All right, and again, just as we're working through our codes, we have number 18 here. To be any questions or any input on just discussion for chapter 46 peddlers and solicitors. That's a short chapter there in our code of ordinances. So
Mayor, Amy and Jennifer and I have been doing some preliminary work, because we did see some deficiencies in the code itself. And I'm gonna just let Amy briefly talk about some things that we've been working on.
I feel like there is a section missing from this ordinance, because one of the things we have been focusing on at a staff level is the application requirements for getting a peddler's permit. We want to practically, what your code currently requires are not in fact what either state law requires or the city is in fact doing. Also, right now you have your peddler's permit is $6 per person, and just the administration costs to run the background check and the database and spend the time to issue the permit is a little bit more than that. So we want to update that fee. We're also cleaning up the requirements between the peddlers who are self-employed and as their own employer get a business license versus those who are employed by someone else who already holds a business license, and trying to connect the dots between those two. So a lot of our efforts have been on the sort of administrative side with regards to that application for a peddler's permit. And I don't see those requirements here, but that's where most of our efforts have been focused.
And Amy, I
right
would
now.
say too, more insight on the peddlers in terms of how we want to address that in terms of identification. I know that's been a big issue that we talked about as well. How do we, once they turn in their application, how do we identify them? What is their badge? We really want to go to a badge of some sort, because it is impacting our residents. And we want to be able to know who's out there. And it's this time of year that, they're out a lot. And yeah, and we don't want our residents to be vulnerable in any form or fashion. So we're working on that. We have a couple examples that we kind of put together for the badge, but because we really want people to know they've come through the city, and if they don't have that badge, they have not been through the city, and they're not associated with us as well.
okay, so a badge issued by the city.
By the city,
Okay.
yes, sir.
And that's anybody knocking on a door.
No,
Not anybody.
That's anyone who's selling
Selling.
stuff. It wouldn't apply
Anybody.
to politicians, and it wouldn't apply to essentially evangelists. If you're going door to door for religious
Right,
purposes, you're not considered a peddler.
Correct.
So these regulations would not apply for those door knockers.
So we just wanted some feedback from you while we were working on it. If there were other additional things, and you're right, Amy, I think there's a portion missing about the application process.
I think that's in a different section.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it
a
was.
different article, but
We'll get it to you next meeting.
And add it to the agenda when it goes out.
Okay, she'll add it to the agenda. All right, thank you.
All right. And now going back to number 14, discussion approval, again, just discussing the or discussing the possible approving the Second Amendment to the City Manager Employment Agreement. Of course, this was tabled in January, and we're bringing this back for this meeting. City Attorney.
So the version in front of you is different than the version that was originally presented to you a few months ago. And so I want to go through those changes. Some of them, I'll go through it section by section. The term extend the 11-month extension to December 2027, that is the same. Section 4, personnel policies. This is a new section of the contract. It adds language to confirm and clarify that the city's personnel policies regarding states of emergency, leave accrual, holidays apply to the city manager the same way they apply to every other salaried employee in the city. That's an issue that has come out in the discussion, so we felt it appropriate to clarify it, confirm that intention here. Section C, salary. This has changed in two ways. There is a proposed increase to her base salary to $178,000. I understand there's been a performance evaluation that's been conducted since this was last seen. And so that is an appropriate consideration to consider. Of course, you don't have to keep it, and you can move that number up or down. Jennifer has information regarding what other city managers in Bay County are paid to help you with the fitness of that number. Also, the language here that the employee shall be entitled to bonuses, holiday, and emergency pay at the same time and manner given to other salaried city employees, again, confirming the intent there. New language, this new sentence here, employer may also increase employees' base salary or other benefits or both in such amounts and to such an extent as the commission may determine desirable on the basis of an annual performance evaluation. You already have a requirement in her contract that you do an annual performance evaluation. It does not, however, tie that evaluation to an increase in benefits or compensation. So I'm trying to just connect the dots there with this new language. Section 7, hours of work. The new language here clarifies what those what activities are outside of normal business hours that she is expected to devote time to. You'll see I have struck municipal holidays accepted because it's clear that y'all intend her to work on municipal holidays. Maybe not all of them, but certainly some of them. The automobile and phone benefits, the number for the automobile allowance is exactly the same. We did strike the word and phone from this provision. Again, just to clarify that the city is actually responsible for the cost of the phone and not the city manager. With regard to Section 10 benefit plans, the language has changed, but the intention is the same. Jennifer has helped me and cleaned up this intent. Again, the ask here is that the city will consider an ordinance that changes the multiplier for the city manager position. So there's language struck here regarding the vesting. The city will consider an ordinance to change the vesting specific to the city manager. You've already done that. It doesn't apply now. So we've just struck that language to set forth the new ordinance we'd like you to consider. And that's my summary of the changes.
All right, thank you. Before further discussion on the summary on the changes, we'll hear from Ms. Jennifer and her report, giving us an update on the evaluation and other pertinent information.
Good morning. First, I want to thank each one of you for participating for the second year in the city manager appraisal process. This year, the overall score for the city manager is 4.22. There were 5 different categories that you all gave ratings on and provided feedback to the city manager. After averaging the scores, the overall score was 4.22. If you remember, 4 is considered an excellent score. Going from 1 to 5 as the rating. Her highest score was in item 1, which is Commission, Citizens, and Public Relations. Item number 5, individual characteristics, on an average was a 4. So between those 5, again, 4.22, if you have specific questions, I'll try to answer them.
All right. Any specific questions in regards to the evaluation analysis for city manager?
Yes, sir.
The base salary, it's stated in here that it is 140.
We're gonna get to that.
Oh, we're not talking about salaries right now?
No, not right now. Just the evaluation, just Jennifer's report right now.
What? Okay, why does it go from fair to excellent?
No, it was satisfactory.
Satisfactory to excellent?
It was just, those are terms.
Why is it, and I know there's whole numbers and decimals and whatnot, but, I just don't know about one form being the judge, coming up here and saying a number is equal. I had a hard time with it, and my one-on-one with the city manager wasn't fun at all. But it's hard to use this as a basis for where we're going. But anyway,
Well, I think what she's giving us is the average, so.
Yeah, the
I mean,
average.
Right.
So in response
and
to that.
our individual reports are there, right?
Yes, exactly. So in response, doing evaluations, we've all experienced that. You're trying to do an objective rating, which is often layered with a lot of subjectivity. Typically in research, you'll find out, though you're looking over a period of time, in this case, a calendar year, as humans, we typically look back what just recently happened or what were the high points. It is hard to put an objective rating on subjective evaluations. There's been studies after studies on testing and measurements to try to come up with the perfect format. This is new. I would say that we need to always look at and adjust. There are those that think there should only be verbal comments with no ratings. I happen to not be a great fan of ratings, Commissioner, because of what you just experienced. It's tough. Is it a 1? Is it a 2? Is it a 2.2? Is it a 5? Is it a 4.8? I tried to leave it as open so you all could make those decisions and my job is not to direct, but just to take and get your feedback and then try to make sense of it, which is a difficult job to do sometimes. In this case, because there was a rating, it's easiest to take a mean number or the average to give you an overall evaluation, because that's typically what is done for all employees. There's some kind of rating that comes up to a scoring amount that gives management some sort of identifier of, is this person performing at expectations or above expectations? Based on the average, she is performing above expectations.
All right. Any other questions for Jennifer in regards to evaluation? All right. Thank you. All right. Moving back to the actual amendments to the contract, Commissioner Pernoff.
Get there. Where Will is. And now
I think you're on page 53.
here it is. C5
Yeah.
salary. Okay. The number in that scratched out is 143.99.
Which is not her current salary.
Right.
Anyway, but that was the number in the last version of the contract.
In the last version. Okay.
Do we have her?
So I think we need to, because everybody's going to think that's the starting point and we're going up to.
So Jennifer's going to give us that current number. Great question.
The current base salary, based on a COLA addition in October of 2024, is $158,324.61.
So 158, 324.60.
61, sorry. Don't forget the penny.
And the COLA increase was 3%. COLA increase in October was
It was 4%, I'm
was
sorry.
4%. And historically, now, we started at 143.99, and we're currently at 158,
There were
324.
two COLAs.
There was two COLA, that's what I want, the history of it. So.
The previous COLA was 3%, and then this one was 4%.
And will COLA increases go into effect in October of this year?
If you all choose to vote that into the budget, which also impacts your
It's
rate as
according
well.
to, when we get everything
Yeah,
in there.
every year that comes
Yeah.
before the
It
commission.
fluctuates up and down. You know, one year it was like a 2.5, because that's all we could really afford. And then I think one year it was a 2, so it just fluctuates.
We typically look at cost of living data
Yes, we also look at that.
and standard of living for the area and try to make some sort of projection for the commission.
Okay. In October, so October this year, there's potentially could be another COLA increase. Okay. So if we, and the term of her contract is 2 more years, right? Like basically 25, January 25, 26, 27, correct?
Right, and that's up for discussion as well.
Okay.
But currently it's through January 27th.
We're projecting to raise her base salary from 158 to 178. That's base salary. That's like taking her currently from 158 to 178.
Right.
Then in October it'll go up another 4%, or 3% or 2%, whatever the COLAs are. So, I mean, you're potentially within a calendar year, we're looking at a almost $30,000 increase if we did this where it is on the paper.
So right now I think it's a 20,000. If we raise it 4%, and it all depends on what COLA is as well.
Mhm.
I think one of the things for us to consider is that the only raise that she has received has been COLA.
Right.
So there has been no additional merit or discussions or pay increases. It has just been COLA. So without COLA, there hasn't been any other increase to the salary.
And I guess this puts us at a point where, I'm thinking, these are my thoughts. I guess it's my turn to talk, but the last person that we hired, or the commission hired, came in at a base salary, I think, of 170. Right? I'd like to know that. The last city manager, the last Lynn Haven city manager.
He came in at 140, didn't he?
Well, from looking at his
Started.
if you can look at his
Started
contract,
at 140.
yeah, his
Started at 140.
Yeah, his contract had a lot of loopholes in it because he started at one price and then 6 months later he got an increase in his price.
Right.
And then some things he got paid out. For example, he got paid for his health insurance. So that was, although it wasn't counted as salary, that was still an additional, compensation that he received. So, and then that was in 2017, whenever that was done. as
No,
well.
I'm just wanting to.
Yeah.
You got the guy before, you got, what are we gonna pay the next person? You know what I mean? That's where I'm going. Well, if we had to hire a new city manager today, what would everybody say? And then what's going on in the area? That's what I want to get out there.
So when Panama City hired their city manager, their base salary.
I want to hear from her. She's got all the.
Hold on. What I'm saying is that when Panama City hired their City, when they had their city manager, his base salary was 183. So Jennifer,
Okay, Panama City, which is, what's their population to ours?
they're 36, we're 21,000.
What's the question before me? I'm sorry.
I guess looking at
What
Michael
was-
White's
what was the
contract,
previous city manager's
Okay.
base salary
Got you.
beginning?
City Manager Michael White, when he was hired August 22nd, 2017, for a 3-year term, his annual salary was $135,000, and then he received $5,000 6 months later, approved by the commission. He also received $672.40 per month as a medical allowance, and $75 per month for a phone allowance, and $750 per month in a vehicle allowance.
and I think that was, if we're looking at even the previous city manager before him, Joe Schubert was getting like 100,000.
Mr. Schubert was hired March 25th, 2014, for a 3-year term. His original annual salary was $100,000. Also contemplated a $5,000 increase after 6 months, which he received. He also received $3,000 in moving expenses. His monthly vehicle allowance was $350, and he received COLAs and merits going forward. In October 15th of 2014, his salary was increased to $106,000. He received a change in April of 2016 to $114,605.50, which was another 6% increase. He also received a 2% COLA, and he had a vehicle allowance of $450 a month.
Got it. So then when we got to Michael White, then there was an increase there. And
Yes, sir.
actually, when we hired city manager, hers was a decrease from what Michael White actually received initially.
Yes, she was, she accepted an acting city manager position in March of 2019 when she went under contract as city manager. She had a annual salary of $115,000. She was then compensated $24,930 for her acting period, which is very typical. In September 27th of 2022, there was a motion on the floor of a commission meeting, and her annual salary was raised to $140,000. And there has not been any merit or change in salary since that time, other than COLA.
And what year was that?
2022.
I think that was 21.
It would have been 21.
Might have been, you are correct. It was the motion was December 9th, 2020. The amendment was effective in 22, where all of that was kind of captured.
Okay.
So December 9th of 2020, the annual salary was $140,000. And then there was a COLA in 2021 of 2.5%, which raised the annual salary to $143,499.20.
So essentially, since the first raise from 115 to 140, there has not been any merits or increases.
There has not been a merit
Other than-
increase. It's just been COLA
Just COLA.
and the change in the vehicle allowance.
And do you have the data for the other city managers?
I do as of October. I will put a caveat that this is sometimes difficult to get, meaning they don't always share everything, so I did a lot of digging. Destin currently, the city manager, started at $200,000, but after 2 years, and he has gone past the 2 years, has a base salary of $225,000. The city also contributes, pays for all of his retirement benefits at 100%. Panama City, and this is one where I'm not sure they added COLA, is $183,851.20. Panama City Beach, again, I got a figure that I have heard is not accurate. I think the city manager may be in excess of 200,000. I've heard 202,000 and some change. I was given $197,205. And Callaway, with a population of 13,890, that city manager was making $159,606, and I think there's been a COLA uptick on that. By Tuesday, I'll see if I can get the actuals, even if I have to go through a formal public records request.
Got it. So for the other, I guess, 3 major cities in the county, all of their city managers get their base salary is higher than
Correct.
our city manager salary. Got it.
That is correct.
How about their budgets? Are they comparable to ours?
If you hold on just a minute.
That's a hard comparison to make because not everybody has their own police department. They may contract it out. Not everybody takes care
True.
of their own garbage.
That's
And
true.
The utilities and services you provide are different in each city. So
That's very true of Callaway. Some of Panama City Beach.
Okay.
yeah.
And so the populations were, you said 13,000 for Callaway?
13, yes, the recorded. I don't know if that's census or just what's, you have an official census number and then you have an actual. But they're listed on the League of Cities at 13,917. What is difficult, as I think Amy was saying, is you have to not just look at budgets, but what services are provided by that city.
Right.
Many cities don't, for example, have law enforcement or a fire department. It also includes what grants, you've seen our budget change based on what grants were issued. So it is really a moving target. Our budget currently is at about 50, Vicki, you can correct me because I don't have our exact, about 52 million.
So is population, because Destin will have buku population for 4 or 5 months.
They have transient
Yes,
population.
they have huge trend, and so will Panama City Beach. So you're managing herds, and influx, and that it's a harder city to run when there's more people in it, trust me. So and that's how they're compensated, obviously. So you're looking at high tourism quarters in Panama City Beach and Destin. So I mean, is it apples to apples? That's where I'm banging my head against the wall. But for all practical purposes, what I'm looking at is at 150. I'm looking my base in my head is 158, right? And the suggested increase is to 178. But you're pending a COLA increase this year and a COLA increase next year.
So do we have a suggestion for a different?
My suggestion would be that her, considering everything in perspective, what I'm thinking is to keep her salary is at 158. I would think her base salary, the number that came into my head was 165. 165, and you're going to do a COLA increase this year and a COLA increase next year, and it would be hovering around somewhere around that the projected number that's there in 2 years. I don't know about taking a base salary straight up $20,000. I mean, I could see.
So I guess-
I think it would be 4% of 158 would take it somewhere in the range of 165. So that's my suggestion. And I don't know if is it time to comment on car allowance and cell phone and anything like that, or we're gonna wait. We're just talking salary right now.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion. So,
And I would say with the 178, I know after talking with Jennifer, I asked a few questions during the evaluation period, and what would it look like to have received merit, because there has not been any merit. What would it look like to have received merit over the past 3 years? Actually, would put us at more around 185.
Right.
So that would,
I wouldn't suggest $1 merit for what we went through last year, but that's my personal feelings.
well, that was one incident, but our city didn't fall apart.
I know,
She still did
but
a good job of getting-
we're putting our feelings out here right now. But that's my suggestion is we go to a base
But
of
should we-
165.
And I get we have our feelings, but she also has her performance.
That's my suggestion is
All right, so that's
performance base
165.
165.
My suggestion is 185. That's my suggestion. Is 185. Commissioner Ward,
What's that?
chime in, man. Get your feelings off your sleeves, chime in.
Well, we're saying it's based on merit, right?
She has a 4.22. She hasn't received any raise over the past 3 years.
And that's all I'm considering.
I'll just say this. I pretty much said what I said at the one commission meeting when we first originally talked about this. Based on my evaluation, keep it the same.
So we have 143.
Oh, no, 158.
Okay.
It's 158.
158, 65, 185.
Is there any way that we could tie a certain amount of money to the evaluation? I mean, we did this in the school system.
I think that's what we're doing now.
You know, whereas if it was, what are the categories? Start with the top one. The 5 was,
Rating?
yes,
Superior? Hold on.
was it superior?
Five was superior. The incumbent consistently demonstrates performance at a very high standard that significantly surpasses reasonable expectations. 4 is excellent. The incumbent consistently demonstrates performance that generally exceeds reasonable expectations. The individual demonstrates no appreciable performance deficiencies. 3, satisfactory. The incumbent consistently meets reasonable performance expectations. The individual demonstrates an acceptable degree of competence in performance. 2, fair. 1, unsatisfactory. I can read those if you need it.
I mean,
I
satisfactory
just don't
is,
think 4 equals excellent when she read it. You know what I mean?
So what would you call it?
I don't know. I
mean,
I didn't label them. I just
Got it.
highly competent, you know,
But that's
Good.
not as,
good, yeah.
but
I mean,
again,
it could be a terminology that we change where it is exceeds expectations, surpasses expectation. It's a word. You all can decide how to change that. There's nothing, this is not written in stone. It was just a guidance.
well, the way I kind of look at it is satisfactory is what you're being paid to do. I mean, if it's less than satisfactory, you don't need to be paid at all. So satisfactory is what is expected. Excellence is better. And so I was thinking along the lines, putting a monetary amount to the top 2 categories. And that way, I mean, there are 5 people doing this.
And historically, the commission, when they would do merit, and I don't know the reason, I was not here, but historically with certainly with city manager White and Schubert and Lynch, it was a 5% increase.
Based on the evaluation?
I don't know that they did evaluations.
How long was Joel here?
Joel here was about 3 years.
3 years. Mike, 2 years. Good. That's a flash in the pan compared to Mr. Lynch, right?
Michael White was here just shy of 2 years.
And what was her evaluation from last year? Because we didn't discuss salary increase last year. We had the evaluation,
Right.
but we didn't get a chance to actually discuss it. You have an evaluation from last year?
Yes, the overall average was 4.63.
What would 5% be? Do you know?
That would put us
5%.
around the 165. 5% would be about an $8,000 increase. That puts us around the 165, 166.
I mean, could you put like a 5% on exceptional and a 8% on, I'm just trying to make it
And-
logical instead of just pulling.
Percentage windows on the, yeah, correlate of that, of a monetary number to the point system.
And then they
That
would
That
know,
would be great, but I think individually, what's, take it individually and do a increase, break it down instead of the average. And then I guess it works out the same way, but.
Yeah, I think it would still come out to be the same.
Yeah.
To follow that line of thinking, what I did was I took her salary at 2021, October of 2021, added the COLA, did what I called a plausible merit increase based on the history that had been passed by the commission, which was 5%. Used that for the next COLA in 2022 of a 3% COLA. Added another 5%. This was if you all had yearly done a merit review, and did that through October of 2024, where her base salary then, starting October 1st of 2024, would be $183,284.
All right. So to Commissioner Vandergrift's point, let's say if we put 5% on 4 above. So including last year and this year, I mean, I know the numbers would change because it would be 5% times last year plus the 5% times this year. But let's just say if we just added both of those and say 10%, that would put us at around 173.
yeah, but I'm not proposing going back. I'm just saying from this point forward.
I know you're not, but I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I know what you're doing. I'm just taking your methodology and saying it's not her fault that we didn't bring this to discussion last year to discuss her
No,
increase.
it's not.
It hasn't been done since 2021. And if any of us are working any job, no matter where we're working, if our salaries aren't discussed annually, we have a problem with it. That's why many people look for new jobs. So we can't be unfair to her. It's not because it's on us to do this. It's not on her to bring up her salary for discussion. It's on us. All right. So I know things happened last year, which is why we didn't discuss it. That happened. The year before that, 4.6. She did excellent. All right. Another 4.22 according to the scale. Whatever terminology you want to use according to the scale, it's still above a 4. All right. So our cities are falling apart. We have 80% reserves. We just paid off another $4 million debt, which actually cuts our debt payoff from 2047. That cuts off 20 years off that debt, which was a 30-year loan. We paid it off in 10. So when we look at her job performance, besides, whether we like particular things or not, when we look at her job performance, and we're talking about being fair, I think it's only fair for us to look back at evaluation last year, evaluation this year. We didn't have an evaluation process in place 2021, 2022, but we did do one last year, this year. And again, it's not her fault that we didn't discuss it. It's not her fault that we didn't bring it up.
I don't know if I totally agree with that. Because I know whenever I know military is a lot different, but when I was in the military, I needed feedback. I always went to my supervisor. I said, hey, feedback's coming up.
We're not talking about feedback, we're talking about pay raise.
I get that.
Yeah.
But she does have some responsibility in that, saying, hey, commissions, we need to do this. So I'm not saying we didn't have responsibility, we did, but she also has a part.
But we
in
can't
that
keep
also.
blaming her for everything.
I'm not blaming her for everything.
But that's what we do. We
No,
always
I'm
fault the
not.
city for something that we should be doing.
No, yes, we are partly to blame for that.
Got it.
But
So guess what?
is-
We did it
so is
last
she.
year. We did it this year. So I'm saying, let's base our increase on last year, this year. We'll go to 5% last year, this year. The numbers may be a little bit different, but in fairness, it would put us at, it would be less than the 178. But I guess we could calculate what the 5% have been on whatever the 2024 salary, 2023 salary would be, and then 5% for
Well,
this salary.
I just did 4%. If you did an increase right now, 4%, it would bring her base to 164,656. If you did a COLA increase over the next 2 years, which in October of this year, you did a COLA increase of 3%, that would add 4939, making it 169,595. If you did a COLA increase the following year of 3%, it would bring her base salary at the end of her contract to 174,682.
I got it.
Okay, so that, I mean, I think and my suggestion was 160, bring her base to 165. A 4% merit increase at this time would bring her base to 164,656. So,
Well, all I'm saying is, we don't need to be just pulling numbers out of the air.
well, if her
Because we have to
rating,
justify this to
yeah,
the
if her
public.
rating was 4 point something last year, 4.6, 4.3 this year, I mean, there's got to be a number to speak with that, I guess, right? So,
And I agree partly with you. Yes, we messed up last year not addressing this, but we probably messed up on a lot of things.
Yeah, but
So,
we got to get this right. Here's an opportunity for us to get it right.
but we get it right from this point forward.
Right. But we can get it right from this point forward, but why not get right what we
yeah,
did last year?
I'm sure a 4% increase makes her highly competitive within the system, if not leaving it where it is. So, I mean, I just don't think we should be going up $20,000 on the salary. So,
What is it if we do 6% or 7%? What's the calculation for that?
For the rating, for the merit rating?
Well, we said 5, he says 4. I'm asking, what is it for 6 or 7?
Yeah, I know, but you're just pulling it out of the air, or is it tied to the merit?
Everything is coming out of the air.
Okay,
I mean,
as long
even-
as we're clear.
Yeah, everything is coming out of the air. Yes.
5% is 7,900 on her base, 7,916, right?
If there's a 6% increase, the base salary
Percent
is
goes-
167,
Nine,
$167,824, and you would round up to 9 cents. It's 0.86.
6% increase is additional is $9,500 base salary increase.
What was the other percentage?
5% was 7,900 increase.
So you said 6% is 9,500?
Yes,
Okay.
and 7% is $11,000.82. Or
Do you have a
$11,082.
particular number in mind to put to what you're proposing?
That's what she
And
was
I'm not talking
asking.
about, I'm not talking about the dollar amount, but the figure that you're proposing.
Well, I was the thinking that the 5% to the exceptional and maybe 7 or 8% to the superior.
Got it. Now, in the past, did you say that they got 6%, the 2 previous city managers, Jennifer?
They usually got 5%.
Okay, 5.
I just pulled 5% out of the air.
Got it. Well, and that would be Also, as you're saying, explaining to our constituents that could also be in standard with
You're a
what
pretty sharp lady.
was previously done. And you say 8% for Superior, or whatever the highest one is.
Yeah, because if 7% is 11,000, 8% is, did you figure that 8%?
I didn't go to 8%. I went as high as 7%, and 7% is $11,082. Increase.
So, all right, so we got the weekend to mull over this. Come back to it on Tuesday. Got some other
Oh,
things.
goodies.
And also we have a
Right.
commissioner that's not here to provide input.
We weren't talking about, what were the other ones we were talking about? Cell phone and car.
Yeah, now cell phone is provided.
Okay, cell phones.
Yeah, so cell phone's provided.
Is medical,
And we already.
is medical
I thought we'd
insurance
already
supplied, or
decided
does
on
that come out of
car.
our base?
No, we
Wasn't
never
that a
voted.
pass?
We never voted on
Your
that.
insurance.
So
Is
it was
insurance
approved
paid
in the
too?
budget, and some of you
Just like the
understood
rest of
that
them.
there was a
So it gets pulled out.
Yeah, I would pay.
It's a deduction.
But she is in fact being paid $750 per month, so this is. your
For a
change
year?
there.
Right, and I mean, that needs probably just be changed. My feeling it's just, it shouldn't have been done in the budget, just change it now in the vote, you know.
Yeah, so we're good for the 750 car allowance. Well, we changed it in the budget, but just
Right,
rectifying it
right.
here.
We got
That's
haggle
what
out
Michael White got paid, 750,
One
right
point
off the
of,
bat.
right off the bat.
one point of clarity for me is section 7 hours of work. Say 40-hour work week, evening commission meetings and workshops, public forums, special events, I know that. But with municipal holidays accepted, because we have like, 11 municipal holidays, do we expect her to, as I was thinking this would be, because I think it was to provide clarity on her not receiving overtime pay for, let's say July 4th. So clarify for me what this,
So this is an
July
expectation
4th,
of.
they get the next day off.
This provision has less to do with compensation and more to do with her hours of work expectation. When do you expect her to work?
I don't expect her to work on holidays though.
Except you do anticipate her to work on certain holidays. So we can call out the holidays you don't expect her to work. Or I took the route of just striking this altogether, because what the conversation I understand from Vicky is that she's on call 365 days a year, whether it's a holiday or not. She is expected to pick up the phone on July 4th, on Christmas Eve, on New Year's Day.
Right, but I think if we don't have, and I do understand that.
And that's an expectation of work. Now, in the
Right.
personnel policies, so section 4, states of emergency, leave accrual, holidays, we are making clear that she's entitled to the same privileges and benefits as other salaried employees with regard to holidays. So if they get paid for holiday, other salaried employees get paid for holiday time, actually taken off, she would too.
Right. I understand that, but as I'm reading this, and we're saying expected to work, I'm not saying on call isn't working, but I would expect you to be in the office if we're saying that you don't get, that you're not off for the holiday, I guess is what I'm saying.
I don't know how to reconcile the fact that you in fact expect her to work on 4th of July at an event the city is hosting, and she is expected to
Well, I
administer
think that's
orchestrate
The city's closed the very next day. They get the next day off. That's how we count that. That's how everybody's comes.
So I think this part came up
So
as
why
an
not?
issue
Like,
because of,
holiday she works, she have the next day off.
And she's, if that is your city policy, those policies apply to her.
Yeah.
But this is an expectation of work.
so I guess the question is, do we expect her to work on Labor Day?
No.
I mean, I understand she's on call. Like, for example, as a pastor, I'm on call 24/7.
Right.
But my church specifically says, hey, we don't expect you to work Monday, Friday, Saturday. You're on call, but we don't want to see you in the office for a certain amount of days. So that's what I'm saying. Like,
This is your contract. My interpretation will always be my interpretation, but if y'all are all in agreement on what your
We don't
expectation
expect
is
her to
here.
work like the snowstorm, for instance. Snowstorm happens, right?
yeah,
Let's say it happens on a holiday, she has no choice but to work,
But-
right? But I don't expect her to go to work if there's nothing going on.
because I think the issue came up that she received overtime pay working for MLK Holiday
Right.
as a special event. So I think that's where the issue even with this discussion even came up.
But it's a city event,
Right. So I think that's covered under
and
special
it's
events.
a city event is she compensated for city events in that?
She would be
Shoot.
now.
She would be now, but does everybody do the other
Yeah, just as she'll be as
other
any other
department heads
employee.
get paid for city
They do,
events?
because they have a policy that applies to them.
Okay.
And again, there's two things at issue. Everyone else is not under contract.
Right.
And so if her contract doesn't entitle her to that compensation, there's an argument she's not entitled to it.
Right.
Here, my particular problem is that there was no expectation that she work. In other words, municipal holidays are sacrosanct. She is not expected to work. She in fact did work because there was a clear expectation she would do. And so what was happening in fact and what the contract said didn't match. I was just trying to reconcile that.
Okay, so if she comes in on Labor Day and she gets paid for working that holiday, I guess I'm just trying to understand, like,
I
Can you
would get
add-
paid, I would get paid as an employee, just like on Labor Day, nobody comes in, no one, except for the people that may run trash. I get paid for that day, because that's a holiday. And so it ties back to our personnel policy.
How do other salaried people get paid? I mean, what's their pay for that day? Is it a
That's a
percentage?
holiday pay.
Is
We
it a
have,
percentage of their salary or is it
it's a holiday,
just-
it's just like they've worked.
and I guess my concern is,
So what, I mean, what is the bump in pay? Is it different for every department head based on their salary or?
No, it's
It's
just like,
it's just a set amount?
no, it's just their base salary that they work. Say an employee, I don't know, gets $25 an hour for that holiday, they're gonna get $25 an hour because that's a holiday. That's a holiday that you all have approved as a city holiday that no one works, but they get paid for that holiday.
We got to get our heads around this because we're paying her as a city manager, which is an all-encompassing salary, okay?
Right.
It should be something that, hey, you know, her city manager job is, it's around the clock, and that's why, you know, her salary is probably the top salary in the city, right? So is this contract, is what we're, for her base pay, good enough to say, hey, tough, you know what, if it's a holiday and you want to work, you work. If overtime, all that, other city managers, Mr. Ward, you said you interviewed them and they said overtime, I mean, my salary is my salary,
and so I think that was
So-
It's all encompassing in the salary.
it's an all-encompassing salary, right? Which is, that's why you're the head on the totem pole and you're city manager.
right. So yeah, overtime's not in here. I guess my question for clarity is, by striking municipal holidays, does that mean that we want her to, that she would have to come in and work on a municipal
Means
holiday?
her salary includes whether she works or not.
That's what I'm trying, because there may be a different commission that says, hey, it's Labor Day, I want to meet with you today. And because it's not in the contract to say you don't get off municipal holidays, then with that person, so that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, by striking municipal holidays, are we saying that, I know she works 365, 24/7, I understand that. But are we striking that? Because in the previous two contracts for Joe Schubert and Michael White, and in the previous contract, we didn't strike it. So I guess I'm just trying to, I don't want to set it up where,
Was it in the previous contract for the previous
I have no
city
idea.
manager? I
I have no
don't
idea.
know either.
I haven't looked at the previous one.
Is her salary compensatory to say, hey, you gotta roll with the punches if that's the case? Because she's a contracted city manager, not a department head, a salaried employee. So I don't know. Do we set up we're the commission that sets the rule here, right?
This contract almost mimics Michael White, except for some changes here. They took the same contract when I originally signed the contract, and they mimicked that contract when it comes to everything, except just for a few caveats in there. But basically, there's not a lot different from that. And part of that is, these are just city holidays, that
Right.
the city is closed. You say the city is closed on those days and no work is done. But yeah, if a commissioner calls me and asks me a question or asks me about, the chief and I mean, if there's an accident somewhere or something happens, I'm working whether you know it or not.
Right.
The majority of the time, I am working, you don't know it.
Yeah. So can we just not strike municipal holidays accepted?
It's
Leave it
your
as is?
contract. Yes, I struck it because I needed to resolve the logical inconsistency. And that was the solution to me. But if it doesn't make sense to y'all, keep it.
So
Absolutely.
just to clarify, because if you look in section C, the new section in there, in the very first line, it says, employees shall be entitled to bonuses, holiday, and emergency pay at the same time and manner given to other salaried city employees. So if I understand that right, if she has to come in on a holiday, then she's gonna get extra pay.
She'll be entitled to it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Just to make sure everyone understands that.
but you're saying by striking it, it reconciles whatever legalities you say were not clear.
It does for me with her expectations of hours of work in terms of what that traditional 40-hour work week is and what is sacrosanct. It resolves it for me. If it doesn't make sense to y'all, keep it in there. This is your contract with her. And if y'all are all on the same page, that is the most important thing.
All right, so we'll take your recommendation.
Well, I think the difference, the way I look at it is, let's take Margaret,
MLK.
MLK, Margaret. That was a flashback. You know, the commission encouraged this to be located in Lynn Haven. And so who did we expect to arrange all of it but the city manager?
It went from being a private event to a city event, right?
Yeah,
So it took place here annually.
which
Anyway.
was an exception
Right,
to her regular responsibilities.
right. And
We
it was-
added
it's
this
been-
on
It's been
there.
added to the holiday calendar, for,
So can it be stated somehow in your legalese that unless directed by the commission, that she will receive payment for whatever?
Now, is that the section that's in the salary there that you put in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that, what you're saying, that's what's covered there.
That's correct.
But Jamie stated that it's already in there. But who determines that? Us? Is it specific?
our contract with.
To the employee handbook, whatever the employee handbook says.
All right.
So that gives us a point of reference. The employee handbook would be the point of reference to determine how that will work out.
I mean, this, the same goes for the 4th of July. The commission supports the 4th of July celebration. I mean, we don't support,
And everybody works, but the commission also votes to give the following day is the actual
well,
holiday. for
that's
everybody.
true for everybody else.
I mean, in certain cases, like where she's the only one that works, I mean, I think if she was a city manager, she'd still be out there working her butt off on Martin Luther King Day. I know.
And
I know
that's
the
why I
woman.
looked at the payment.
And so
kinda like
why not give
bonus.
her the next day off?
Yeah.
You know,
She won't take the next day off.
well,
We don't have
That's-
Yeah, per the contract, it says she can unless it interrupts the city
right.
functioning.
Yeah.
So then she typically probably doesn't, because like you said, she can't. All right, we had a little time to mull over the salary. Any other thoughts on that? A number that we can give Amy to put in there so we can get ready for Tuesday.
Are we back to salary?
Yeah, we got to put a number in there so we can get Amy to update it for Tuesday.
Well, I gave my opinion
So 5%.
based on the evaluation.
Based on the evaluation.
Can we say 6%?
You can say whatever you want.
All right, you're saying 5, I'm saying, can we do 6?
Well, we're all gonna vote on it anyway.
Yep. What do you think, Pat?
Um,
Can we do 6%?
I think, I think 5% is good. I did it at 4, so I'm willing to do 5%.
So let's put in the number for 5%. We'll look at it on Tuesday. And any questions about the multiplier on 54?
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Ms. Jennifer, could you give us a little explanation, please?
I think the way it's written, it just gives the opportunity for us to go to the pension and find out the impact of an increased multiplier is for this position. But typically, in volatile positions, meaning positions that are at risk of not having a long tenure, which whenever you're an executive director, your tenure is often limited to contracts or specific times. If that individual participates in a pension, there is what's called an increase in the multiplier. That is the percentage that both the high average of the high 5 years of salary times a multiplier times of years, and then the actuarial accountants do fancy stuff and come up with a pension amount. It is the one factor that can increase the final amount of what the pension payment would be. For example, in the state of Florida, the highest multiplier is reserved to elected officials as yourselves. Judges, elected officials have the highest multiplier. Then senior management, heads of departments, and law enforcement has the second highest multiplier. Down to then there's a medium range. I think they have 4 levels of multipliers for the FRS program. It's just one of again, it's something for you all to consider. In some of the city manager information that I collected, one way that cities address this is they pay completely for all the contributions, both the contracted employee and the employer side, so that the contracted employee doesn't have to contribute to pension. It's paid at 100%. That's another way that they do it.
So by saying yes to this as I'm reading it, if we leave it as it's proposed, we're just saying that we would consider it and not that we're saying that's what's going to happen. I know in the past, Commissioner Prentice.
There was no percentage. It requires a special study to be able to come back to you and explain what the.
If we leave this as is, we're not saying that we're not voting to say, yes, we're going to do a multiplier. We're just saying that we'll agree to considering a proposal for the study to be done.
And legally, it has to go before the pension. The pension has to consider it. And then if they consider it, they pass an ordinance.
Got it.
That's set by state statute.
Got it.
So, like, mine was 48% of the highest 5 years. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, that's kind of what they call the cheat sheet to help explain what your actual payment may be. But to get there, there is an actual formula that probably used 3.5% of your high 5 times your numbers of years, extrapolated out on how long they expect you to live, and that's what comes out with your monthly pension payment. It's very complicated.
All right. So I say yes, leave it there, and then we'll work on getting those numbers in the next. We're working with.
So we're voting to just look at this.
Leave it open-ended.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what we're voting. That's what will be included in the contract.
No numbers, just looking at it.
Yes, no numbers. Yes. But that's what we're agreeing to. So. All right. Awesome. Being adjourned.